Chapter 1. The Forest Remembers. The carriage wheels had stopped turning 3 miles back. Axle snapped on a root thick as a man's thigh. And now Elena Thorne walked alone through the Blackwood forest with nothing but a stolen lantern and the certainty that her former employer's men would not stop searching until dawn. Her daughter's hand was small and cold in hers, trusting in a way that made Elena's chest ache with fear she couldn't afford to show. "Mama, my feet hurt." Lily's voice was barely a whisper, as if the 5-year-old understood that silence meant survival. "I know, sweet girl. Just a little further." Elena didn't know if she was lying. The forest stretched endlessly in all directions, ancient oaks twisted into shapes that seemed deliberate, malevolent. Fog crept between the trees like something alive, searching. Behind them, dogs barked. Distant, but closing. Elena's grip tightened on her daughter's hand. Lord Ashford would not forgive her for reading his private correspondence, for discovering what he truly traded in those locked rooms beneath the estate. She'd been foolish to think her position as governess made her safe, that her education would protect her. Some knowledge was a death sentence. "Mama, look." Lily stopped walking, her free hand pointing toward a break in the trees. Through the fog, a structure emerged. Not a cottage or hunter's lodge, but something grander. Gothic spires rose against the storm-dark sky, stone walls that seemed to absorb rather than reflect the lantern light. The manor was impossibly large for such a remote location, and impossibly whole, as if time had forgotten to claim it. "We should go around," Elena said, even as her legs trembled with exhaustion. "No." Lily's voice carried an odd certainty. "He's there. Who's there?" But her daughter was already pulling her forward, small legs moving with sudden purpose toward the iron gates that stood open like a mouth. Elena wanted to resist, wanted to trust her instincts that screamed this was wrong. But the dogs sounded closer now, and the first drops of rain had begun to fall. The gates didn't creak when they passed through. The path to the manor's entrance was lined with roses that bloomed despite the season, their petals black as mourning cloth. Elena's breath came short as they climbed the stone steps, each one worn smooth by centuries of use. Before she could knock, the door opened. The man who stood in the doorway was tall, impossibly so, dressed in clothes that belonged to another century, dark wool and silver buttons, everything precise and expensive. His face was beautiful in the way of Renaissance paintings, all sharp angles and aristocratic grace, skin so pale it seemed luminous in the darkness. But it was his eyes that stopped her heart. Silver gray, ancient, and fixed on her daughter with an expression Elena couldn't name. "You," Lily breathed, and released her mother's hand. "I knew you'd be real." The man's composure cracked for a fraction of a second, something like shock flickering across his features before the mask returned. When he spoke, his voice was deep, accented with old-world formality. "Child, you should not recognize me, but I do. From my dreams." Lily took a step forward, fearless in a way that terrified Elena. "You're always there, in the big chair by the windows. You tell me stories about the stars." Elena grabbed her daughter's shoulder, pulling her back. "Lily, hush." To the stranger, "Forgive us. We're lost, and there are men pursuing us. We'll move on. We won't trouble you." "They're close," he interrupted, tilting his head as if listening to something only he could hear. 6 men, 8 dogs. They'll reach my gates in less than 10 minutes. Those silver eyes moved to Elena, and she felt the weight of them like a physical thing, assessing her worth, her danger, her desperation. "You've stolen something Lord Ashford values." It wasn't a question. Elena lifted her chin. "Information. About what he does to the children he buys from the workhouses." Something flickered in the man's expression. Approval, perhaps, or recognition of a kindred recklessness. He stepped aside, gesture elegant despite its simplicity. "Then you should come inside. The storm will be quite severe tonight." Elena didn't move. Every instinct warned her this was a different kind of danger, that crossing this threshold would change something fundamental. But Lily's hand slipped into the stranger's with perfect trust, and the sound of dogs grew louder, and the rain began to fall in earnest. "I don't even know your name," Elena said. The corner of his mouth lifted, not quite a smile. Sebastian Corvinus, and you are trespassing on land that has belonged to my family for 600 years. He paused, eyes still on Lily, who gazed up at him with dreamy fascination, though it seems impossibly that we've met before. In dreams, the child says. Thunder rolled across the sky. The dogs bayed at the gates. Elena stepped across the threshold, pulling her daughter close. The door closed behind them with a sound like a tomb ceiling, and she caught the scent of old books and older stone, of candle wax and something metallic she couldn't quite place. You'll be safe here, Sebastian said, and Elena didn't believe him for a moment. But when his eyes met hers in the candlelight, she saw something that might have been loneliness, vast and ancient as the forest itself. At least until morning. Chapter 2. Sanctuary and Secrets. The interior of Corvinus Manor defied logic. Elena had glimpsed the structure from outside. Large, certainly, but not this vast. Corridors stretched into shadow beyond her lantern's reach, and the entrance hall rose 3 stories high, dominated by a staircase of black marble that split and curved like the branches of a great tree. Portraits lined the walls, faces from different eras watching with eyes that seemed to follow their movement. Lily hadn't released Sebastian's hand. She walked beside him as if they'd known each other for years, occasionally looking up at him with that same dreamy recognition that made Elena's stomach tight with unease. The east wing will be warmest, Sebastian said, leading them up the stairs. I don't often have guests. I can see that. Elena gestured at the dust-free surfaces, the fresh candles that lit their path despite the late hour. Yet everything suggests you were expecting someone. His lips quirked. Perhaps I was. The house has a way of knowing. She wanted to press him on that impossibility, but exhaustion dragged at her limbs, and Lily stumbled on the steps. Sebastian caught the child without seeming to move, lifting her into his arms with effortless grace. Lily's head drooped against his shoulder, dark curls spilling across his dark coat. She's asleep, Elena said, surprised. Lily never fell asleep easily, not since the nightmares had started 6 months ago. The same nightmares. Elena realized with cold certainty that featured the man now carrying her daughter through a manner that shouldn't exist. Children often feel safe where they shouldn't, Sebastian observed, something unreadable in his voice, though in this case perhaps her instincts are sound. He led them to a suite of rooms that looked untouched by time, a sitting area with furniture upholstered in midnight velvet, a bedroom beyond with a 4-poster bed draped in silk, a fire already burned in the hearth, impossible given that no one could have known they would come. Sebastian laid Lily on the bed with surprising gentleness, adjusting the covers around her small frame. In the firelight, Elena caught details she'd missed before. The unnatural stillness of his posture, the way he didn't seem to breathe, the fact that despite the warmth of the room, his breath produced no mist in the air when he spoke. She's been dreaming of you, Elena said quietly, not quite a question. For months. She draws pictures, a man in a library surrounded by old books, a man who teaches her about constellations. She moved closer, studying his profile. How is that possible? Sebastian's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. I don't know. I've never encountered anything like it. He turned to face her fully, and in the dancing firelight, his eyes seemed to reflect like an animal's. I dream sometimes, of teaching a child about the stars, about history older than her country. But vampires don't dream. We don't sleep. It shouldn't be possible. The word hung in the air between them. Vampires. Elena's hand moved instinctively to the small knife she kept in her pocket. Useless against a creature who could apparently move faster than her eye could track, but the weight of it was comforting. You're admitting it. Just like that. You already knew. Sebastian moved to the window, pulling back the heavy curtain to reveal the storm outside. Rain lashed against the glass and lightning illuminated the forest beyond the grounds. You noticed my lack of breath. The temperature of my skin when our hands touched at the door, the way the light sits strangely on me. He glanced back at her. You're observant, Miss Thorne. It's why you uncovered Lord Ashford's secrets, and why you're still alive despite them wanting you dead. How do you know my name? Your daughter said it. In the dreams we apparently share. His expression darkened. I've walked this earth for 263 years. I've seen impossible things, survived wars and plagues and the slow decay of everything I once loved. But this, he gestured at Lily, sleeping peacefully between them. This violates every law of my kind. We don't connect with humans this way. We don't share dreams with children. Elena moved to the bedside, brushing a curl from Lily's forehead. Her daughter's face was peaceful, untroubled by the revelation that the man from her dreams was a monster. She's not afraid of you. She should be, but she isn't. Perhaps that makes her wiser than both of us. Sebastian turned from the window. Ashford's men won't breach my lands. There are agreements in place, treaties between my house and the local families, protections that extend to those who enter seeking sanctuary. Your house. Elena committed the term to memory. There are more of you. Enough. He moved toward the door with that same uncanny grace. You should rest. We can discuss what this means, what your daughter's gift means, after you've slept. The storm will break before dawn, and decisions will need to be made. Will you feed? The question escaped before Elena could stop it. While we sleep, will you? I don't take blood without consent. His voice was cold now, formal. Whatever else I am, I'm not that kind of monster. There are rules, Miss Thorne, ancient ones, and I've never broken them. He left before she could respond, the door closing with a soft click. Elena stood in the warm room, listening to her daughter's even breathing, and tried to convince herself that seeking shelter with a vampire was somehow safer than facing Lord Ashford's revenge. Outside, lightning struck close enough to rattle the windows. Chapter 3. Blood and Bargains. Elena woke to candlelight and the certainty that she wasn't alone. Sebastian stood by the window, silhouette sharp against the pre-dawn darkness, as still as the portraits that lined his halls. She'd slept in her clothes, one hand on the knife beneath her pillow, but hours had passed without threat. Lily still slumbered peacefully, small chest rising and falling in the deep sleep of children who felt safe. How long have you been watching? Elena asked, voice rough with sleep. An hour. Perhaps 2. He didn't turn from the window. Time moves differently when you've lived as long as I have. I forget that humans find it unsettling. She sat up, smoothing her skirts. You said we needed to discuss what this means. Lily's dreams. Before that, there's something you should know. Sebastian finally faced her, and in the candlelight his features seemed carved from marble. Beautiful and cold and utterly inhuman. The connection between us, between myself and your daughter, makes her valuable. Dangerously so. Valuable to whom? To every vampire house in Europe who seeks advantage. He moved away from the window, pacing the room with restless energy that contradicted his earlier stillness. We don't form bonds with humans beyond the blood oath. We don't share consciousness or dreams. If word spreads that a child can somehow access my thoughts, they'll want to take her. Elena's hand went to Lily's sleeping form. To use her, or study her, or worse. Sebastian's expression hardened. There are those who would drain her completely, hoping her blood carries whatever allows this connection. Others who would keep her caged, force her to spy on rival houses through their dreams. The casual horror in his words made Elena's stomach turn. Then we'll leave, before anyone knows we were here. We'll disappear somewhere they can't find us. You can't. He stopped pacing, meeting her eyes with terrible certainty. I felt them arrive 2 hours ago. House Valenti, under the command of Lord Ashford's patron. They've surrounded the manor. Elena was on her feet instantly, moving to the window. Through the breaking storm she could see them. Figures in dark clothes positioned throughout the grounds, too numerous to count, moving with the same inhuman grace as Sebastian. Ashford is human. How does he have vampire allies? He provides them with what they need. Access to the workhouses, children no one will miss, blood that comes with no questions asked. Sebastian's voice was bitter. House Valenti has always been pragmatic about their feeding, and in exchange they ensure Ashford's business dealings prosper, that his enemies meet unfortunate ends. That's why he wanted me dead. Elena's hands clenched on the windowsill. I discovered not just his crimes, but his protection. And now that protection extends to this manor, demanding I surrender you both. Sebastian moved beside her, close enough that she could feel the unnatural cold that emanated from him. House Valenti claims you stole something that belongs to them. Information about their feeding practices. And your daughter, he paused. They've heard rumors. Whispers that Ashford's governess had a child who spoke of impossible things. The other servants. Elena closed her eyes. Lily talked about her dreams. I thought it was harmless. Just a child's imagination. Imagination that accurately described me, my library, my habits. Sebastian's reflection in the window glass was faint, ghostly. House Valenti is led by Caterina, ancient, ruthless, and interested in any advantage over rival houses. If she learns what your daughter can do... A sound interrupted him. Shattering glass, 3 floors below. Lily woke instantly, sitting up with a gasp, her eyes finding Sebastian with that same unnatural recognition. They're coming. The woman with red eyes and sharp teeth. She wants to hurt Mama. Sebastian was moving before Elena could react, crossing to the bedroom door and turning the lock. Miss Thorne, I need you to listen very carefully. This room has protections, old magic woven into the foundations. They can't enter without invitation, but I need to go down there, need to speak with Caterina before this escalates into open war. You're leaving us here? Elena pulled Lily close, feeling her daughter's heartbeat flutter with fear. I'm keeping you safe. He turned back, and for a moment his mask of cold control slipped, showing something that might have been genuine concern. If I don't go, they'll break through eventually. House Valenti has numbers I can't match alone. But if I can negotiate with our lives... Elena's voice was steady despite the terror clawing at her chest. What's to stop them from simply taking us once you're gone? The same thing that's protected this manor for 6 centuries. Sebastian moved to a panel on the wall, pressing something that made it slide open. Inside, an array of weapons gleamed. Silver daggers, wooden stakes, vials of liquid that glowed faintly blue. If I fall, if they breach this room, use whatever you need. Aim for the heart, the throat. Make it count. Lily's hand slipped into Elena's. You won't fall. You're too strong. Sebastian looked at the child, and something in his ancient eyes softened. I've fallen before, little dreamer. But perhaps this time... He trailed off, shaking his head. Stay here. Stay quiet, and if anyone but me tries to enter, show them what humans are capable of when defending their young. He was gone before Elena could respond, moving with that impossible speed, the door closing and locking behind him with a sound of finality. Below, voices rose, a woman's laughter, cruel and delighted. Lily pressed against her mother's side. He won't let them have me, Mama, he promised. In the dreams, he always keeps his promises. Chapter 4. The Cost of Protection. The walls shook. Elena pressed Lily behind her, one hand gripping a silver dagger from Sebastian's cache. The other braced against the doorframe for balance. The sounds of battle below were unlike anything she'd encountered. Crashes that suggested furniture being hurled through walls, inhuman shrieks, and beneath it all, Sebastian's voice, cold and commanding, speaking in a language that predated English. Mama, he's hurt. Lily's face was white, eyes distant. He's bleeding. She cut him with something iron. You can see this? In your mind? I always see him. The child's voice was strange, too old. Even when I'm awake now, ever since we came inside. It's like he's part of me. Another crash, closer this time. Elena moved to the hidden weapons panel, assessing what Sebastian had given them. 3 silver daggers, 2 wooden stakes, and those glowing vials. She uncorked one carefully, and the liquid inside smelled of garlic and something chemical, burning. Holy water, perhaps, or something older. The door handle rattled, a woman's voice, honey-sweet and poisonous. Dear Sebastian, hiding behind locked doors? How very unlike the great Lord Corvinus. This is my domain, Caterina. Sebastian's voice came from somewhere beyond the door, ragged with effort. Ancient law grants me right to offer sanctuary. You violate it at risk of bringing every house down on yours. Laws change when advantage demands it. Footsteps in the hallway, multiple sets. And this mortal woman has information that belongs to Lord Ashford, belongs to us by extension. Surely you understand that protecting her makes you complicit in theft. I understand that you're using human law to justify breaking our oldest codes. A thud, as if something heavy had struck the wall. Leave my lands, Katerina, while I still allow it. And the child? The sweetness in that voice turned sharp. We've heard such interesting things about her. How she dreams of vampires she's never met. How she speaks of things she couldn't possibly know. A pause. That's worth investigation, wouldn't you say? Lily whimpered, pressing her face against Elena's back. Elena's grip tightened on the dagger, mind racing through options. The window was too high to jump from safely. The door's protections held for now. But if Sebastian fell, she's under my protection. Sebastian's voice was weaker now, both of them, by blood and oath and ancient law. You haven't taken a blood oath in a century. Katerina's laughter echoed. Don't tell me you've grown sentimental over a mortal and her whelp. Silence. Then Sebastian spoke again, and this time his voice carried through the door with unnatural clarity, as if he wanted them to hear. Miss Thorne. The oath requires consent. If you're willing, don't answer. Katerina's composure cracked. Do you know what you're offering, Sebastian? What you're binding yourself to? A human with no power, no standing. Open the door, Elena said quietly to Lily. Just a crack, quickly. Her daughter moved before fear could stop her, turning the lock with small, steady hands. Elena pushed the door open just enough to see the hallway beyond. Sebastian, pressed against the far wall, blood, impossibly red against his pale skin, staining his coat. Katerina stood before him, flanked by 4 others, all of them inhumanly beautiful and utterly cold. I consent, Elena said, voice carrying despite her terror. Whatever oath you're offering, I consent. Katerina whirled, red eyes blazing. You foolish mortal. You don't even know what you're agreeing to. I know my daughter needs protection. Elena stepped into the doorway, dagger raised, positioning herself between the vampires and Lily. I know that Lord Ashford traffics in children, that your house enables him, and that you'll use my daughter for whatever advantage you can extract from her before disposing of her. So yes, I consent to whatever bond Sebastian offers. Gladly. Sebastian's hand went to his chest, where blood seeped through torn fabric. He pulled the wound open further, deliberately, and extended his other hand toward Elena. Your blood to mine. Your will to my protection. By the old laws and older magic, I bind myself to your defense until death releases us both. Sebastian, this is madness. One of Katerina's companions hissed. She's nothing. Don't throw away centuries of neutrality for what's right. He looked at Elena with those silver eyes, and she saw in them something she hadn't expected. Respect. Come, quickly. Elena crossed the space between them in 3 strides, ignoring Katerina's snarl of fury. She pressed her palm to Sebastian's bloodied chest, feeling the unnatural cold of him, the absence of heartbeat. His hand covered hers, and when he pressed down, she felt skin break, blood well. The world tilted. Elena gasped as something cold and ancient rushed through her veins, carrying with it impressions that weren't her own. Centuries of memory, battles fought in moonlight, the taste of blood taken and given, loneliness so vast it had its own weight, and beneath it all, Lily's presence. A bright, warm thread connecting them all. It's done. Sebastian's voice seemed to come from inside her skull. She's mine now. They both are. Touch them, and you challenge House Corvinus directly. Katerina's perfect face twisted with rage. You've made a mistake, Sebastian. When the council hears of this, let them hear. He straightened, wound already healing despite the iron that had caused it. I invoke sanctuary right. Get out of my home! For a heartbeat, Elena thought Katerina would attack anyway. But then the ancient vampire smiled, cold and calculating. As you wish. But know this. The child's gift won't stay secret. Others will come, and some won't be bound by your precious laws. She was gone in a blur of movement, her companions following. The manor fell silent. Chapter 5. Wounds and Truths. Sebastian collapsed against the wall the moment Katerina's presence faded from the grounds. Elena caught his arm on instinct, shocked by how heavy he suddenly seemed despite his earlier grace. The wound in his chest still bled sluggishly, the edges of torn flesh refusing to knit back together. "Iron," he managed, voice strained. "It poisons us, slows healing." He looked at his hand where her blood still mixed with his, expression unreadable. "Help me to the library. There are supplies. You're barely standing." But Elena was already moving, supporting his weight as best she could. Lily appeared at her other side, small hands reaching for Sebastian with perfect trust. "I'm well enough." He pushed away from the wall, stumbling. "I've survived worse. Prove it by not dying in the next 5 minutes." Elena guided him toward the stairs, acutely aware of the bond now humming between them. She could feel his pain, distant and muted like an echo of sensation. "Lily, run ahead. Find the library." Her daughter moved with purpose, as if she'd walked these halls before. Perhaps in some way she had, through dreams that had somehow breached the boundaries between vampire and child. The thought should have terrified Elena, but exhaustion and adrenaline left no room for fear. The library was exactly as Lily had described in her whispered morning stories. Floor-to-ceiling shelves, a massive desk buried under maps and manuscripts, and windows that faced east toward the coming dawn. Sebastian directed them to a cabinet near the fireplace, where Elena found bandages, strange-smelling salves, and a bottle of clear liquid that burned her nose when uncorked. "Shirt off," she said, falling into the brisk efficiency she'd learned caring for the children in Ashford's household. "I need to see the wound properly." Sebastian hesitated, then complied, revealing skin that was alabaster white except where blood had stained it. The wound was worse than Elena had thought, a diagonal slash from collarbone to sternum, edges black with iron poisoning. But it was the scars that made her pause, dozens of them, faint white lines crisscrossing his chest and back, a map of violence that had somehow failed to kill him. 263 years, Sebastian said quietly, watching her face. "That's a long time to accumulate proof of failure. Or survival." Elena poured the clear liquid directly onto the wound, ignoring his hiss of pain. "Hold still. This is going to hurt worse before it helps." Lily climbed into the chair beside them, watching with solemn eyes. "You saved us. Like in the dreams, when you protect me from the shadow things." "Shadow things?" Elena glanced at her daughter while her hands worked, cleaning and binding the wound with practiced efficiency. "Nightmares," Sebastian explained, wincing as she applied the salve. "The dreams weren't always peaceful. Sometimes she'd be frightened and He trailed off, as if uncertain how to explain. "I'd teach her how to be brave, how to face the darkness." "You taught me the stars have names," Lily said. "And that old things aren't always bad things. That time makes you strong if you let it." Elena tied off the bandage, aware of how close she was to him, how the bond hummed stronger with proximity. "Why would you do that? Comfort a child you'd never met?" "Because she was there." Sebastian's eyes met hers, raw honesty in them. "Every time I attempted to rest, to quiet my mind as our kind must sometimes do, she was there, small and frightened and somehow finding her way into my consciousness." What was I supposed to do? Let her cry alone? Most would have. Elena moved away, putting distance between them, needing to think clearly. Most would have seen her as a curiosity at best. A threat at worst. I've been most things in my long existence. I'd prefer not to add cruel to the list. He stood carefully, testing his balance. "The bond we've formed, it's permanent. You understand that? Your blood is now linked to mine. I'll feel your fear, your pain, and you'll feel mine." "I already do." Elena pressed a hand to her chest, where that strange cold echo pulsed. "It's like having someone else's heartbeat inside me. It will fade to background eventually. Become natural." Sebastian moved to the window, watching the horizon. "But it means Katerina was right about one thing. I've ended my neutrality. House Corvinus was powerful once, but I'm the last of my line. Alone, I'm vulnerable. And now I've bound myself to protecting 2 humans against one of the most vicious vampire houses in Europe. Then we'll leave. Release us from the bond and we'll disappear. It doesn't work that way. Death is the only release." He turned from the window, jaw tight. "Besides, leaving won't help. The moment Lily spoke of her dreams to those servants, she became a target. House Valenti won't be the only ones who come searching. Others will want to know if her gift can be replicated, controlled, weaponized. Elena pulled Lily close, feeling the weight of impossible choices. There has to be something. Some way to protect her without binding us to your war. There is. Sebastian's expression was grim. She could be turned. Made vampire herself, the transformation would likely destroy whatever allows the dream connection, making her useless to the houses who want to exploit her. No. Elena's voice was flat. She's 5 years old. I won't condemn her to an eternity she doesn't understand. I wasn't suggesting it, merely stating the option. He returned to the desk, wincing as he sat. The better solution is to make House Corvinus strong again. Find allies among the other houses. Build protections that even Katerina won't dare breach. And how do we do that? Sebastian's smile was sharp, dangerous. We give them a reason to fear you instead. Chapter 6. The Cartographer's Gift. Dawn came softly to Corvinus Manor, gray light filtering through ancient windows. Elena hadn't slept, instead, spending the hours poring over Sebastian's maps and documents while he explained the intricate politics of vampire houses. Lily dozed in an armchair, curled beneath a blanket that smelled of old leather and older. Magic, House Valenti controls the Eastern Territories through blood oaths with 7 minor houses. Sebastian pointed to a map covered in notations only he could read. But their power is recent, barely 3 centuries old. They're aggressive, expanding, and Katerina is brilliant at finding and exploiting weakness. And the other major houses? Elena studied the web of connections, her mind cataloging patterns the way she'd once cataloged the books in Ashford's library. House Draculesht in the Carpathians. Ancient. Isolated, concerned primarily with tradition. House Bathory in Hungary. Sadistic even by our standards, but constrained by treaties. House Karnstein in Austria. Cultured, subtle, dangerous in ways that don't involve open warfare. He traced lines between territories. And House Corvinus, which once held dominion over these lands from the Rhine to the Danube. Once. Elena caught the bitterness in his tone. What changed? Time. Entropy. The fact that I watched everyone I loved turn to dust while I remained. Sebastian's hand stilled on the map. My sister took her life 200 years ago, walked into sunlight rather than face another century alone. My parents simply stopped. Ceased to feed, to move, to exist. They're still in the catacombs below, perfectly preserved, perfectly dead. I'm sorry. The words felt inadequate. Don't be. They made their choices, as I've made mine. He looked at Lily, still sleeping. Though I begin to understand what drove them to it. Loneliness has weight. After enough centuries, it becomes unbearable. Elena returned her attention to the map, uncomfortable with the intimacy of his confession. These notations, they're territorial markers? Feeding grounds, blood oath bonds, locations of sanctuaries and neutral ground. He leaned closer, and she caught the scent of him. Cold stone and old paper. Nothing human. Why? Because I see a pattern Katerina's missed. Elena pulled a blank sheet of paper toward her, began sketching quickly. Look, House Valenti's expansion has been opportunistic, taking territory where houses have fallen or withdrawn. But they're overextended. These supply lines are too long, these oaths spread too thin. If pressure were applied here, she marked 3 points on her crude map. And here their network would collapse inward. Sebastian stared at her drawing, then at her face, expression shifting from surprise to something like admiration. You see this just from looking at the map? I was a governess, but before that I studied at Cambridge. Elena kept her voice level, though pride warmed her chest. My father believed daughters should be educated, even if society disagreed. I specialized in historical geography, territorial expansion, empire logistics, supply chain vulnerabilities. Your vampire houses operate like medieval kingdoms. The principles are the same. You're not just running from Ashford. Sebastian's voice held new respect. You're intelligent enough to be genuinely dangerous. I'm intelligent enough to know that knowledge without power is simply a more elaborate way to die. She met his eyes. But if you can get me information, real intelligence on House Valenti's operations, I can find the cracks. The weaknesses Katerina thinks she's hidden. A slow smile spread across Sebastian's face, transforming him from beautiful corpse to something vibrant and alive. Miss Thorne, I believe you've just made yourself invaluable to every house that wants to see Valenti fall. Is that enough? To keep Lily safe? It's a beginning. He stood, movement easier now that the iron poison had worked through his system. I have contacts, vampires who owe me favors, who remember when House Corvinus held power. If I can convince them you're worth protecting, worth investing in, they'll use me. Just like Katerina wants to use Lily. Yes. Sebastian didn't soften it. But they'll keep you alive while they do it. And alive means time. Time to plan, to strengthen our position, to find a permanent solution. A sound from the doorway made them both turn. Lily stood there, blanket trailing behind her, eyes wide and distant. They're coming back. Different ones this time. They smell like snow and blood. Sebastian moved to the window with that impossible speed, scanning the grounds. Haus Draculești. 3 of them, approaching under truce banner. He looked at Elena. They must have heard about the oath, about what happened with Katerina. They're here to assess whether House Corvinus is worth acknowledging again, or to finish what Katerina started. Elena grabbed one of the silver daggers, found comfort in its weight, possibly. Sebastian straightened his torn shirt, attempting dignity despite the bloodstains. But they're following protocol, which means they expect negotiation. This is our chance to prove you're valuable, that House Corvinus has something worth their alliance. I'm a governess with a talent for maps. What alliance could that possibly buy? The kind that saved me hours ago. He moved to her, close enough that she could feel the cold radiating from his skin. You saw what Katerina couldn't. Found weaknesses in her territorial expansion that I missed despite centuries of political experience. If you can do that for other houses, show them how to counter their enemies, strengthen their positions. They'll protect us to keep me working for them. Exactly. Sebastian's hand found hers, the touch shocking in its coldness. The bond hummed between them, stronger now. Trust me, please. I haven't kept another soul alive in decades, but I'll keep you both breathing. I promise. Lily's hand slipped into Elena's free one. He keeps his promises, Mama, even the hard ones. Below, the doorbell rang, a sound like church bells tolling. Chapter 7. Alliance in Moonlight. The delegation from House Draculești moved like winter itself had taken form. 3 figures dressed in furs and silver, their skin pale as fresh snow, eyes black as midnight. The eldest, a woman whose age was impossible to determine, studied Elena with the intensity of a scholar examining a rare manuscript. Lord Corvinus. Her voice carried the weight of mountains. We heard you'd taken a blood oath. I confess curiosity about what mortal could inspire such commitment. Lady Angela. Sebastian inclined his head, the gesture respectful without being subservient. May I present Miss Elena Thorne and her daughter Lily, my oath-bound. A child. One of the male vampires leaned forward, nostrils flaring. Who dreams? How peculiar. Lily pressed against Elena's leg but didn't cower. You smell like the mountains in my geography books. Cold stone and pine trees. Angela's expression shifted minutely. Surprise, perhaps, or approval. The child has sense. More than her mother, I'd wager, seeking sanctuary with Sebastian. Her attention fixed on Elena, Lord Ashford's former governess, the woman who discovered his arrangement with House Valenti. I discovered he was murdering children. Elena kept her voice steady. House Valenti's involvement was merely an additional horror. And now you've embroiled yourself in politics far more dangerous than human trafficking. Angela moved closer, circling Elena like a predator assessing prey. Katerina will not forgive the embarrassment you've caused. She'll hunt you until you're dust. Then I'll need allies. Elena met the ancient vampire's gaze directly, which I assume is why you're here. To determine if House Corvinus is worth acknowledgement again, now that Sebastian has ended his neutrality. A thin smile crossed Angela's lips. Direct, I appreciate that. Yes, Miss Thorne. We're here to assess whether your presence strengthens or weakens our eastern territories. House Draculast has no love for Valenti's expansion, but we also won't support weakness dressed as nobility. Show her, Sebastian said quietly to Elena. Show her what you found. Elena moved to the library's desk, where her maps and notations still lay. House Valenti's territorial expansion follows predictable patterns: aggressive acquisition, forced blood oaths, consolidation through fear. But they've overextended. These 3 points, she indicated the marked locations, represent critical junctures where their supply lines and oath networks intersect. Apply pressure here, and their entire eastern territory becomes untenable. Angela studied the map, then Elena, black eyes unreadable. And you determined this how? By treating vampire politics like what they are: medieval territorial expansion with immortal players. Elena pulled out another sheet covered in calculations. House Valenti has grown too fast. Their blood oaths are spread thin, their feeding grounds insufficient to support their numbers. Force them to consolidate, and they'll have to abandon these territories. She circled 5 regions, leaving them vulnerable to acquisition by houses with stronger infrastructure, like Draculast. The male vampire who'd commented on Lily moved closer. You're proposing we undermine Valenti's eastern holdings. I'm proposing that if House Draculast wanted those territories, now is the optimal time to move. Elena met his eyes. Before Katerina realizes her vulnerability and adjusts. Silence fell across the library. Sebastian watched Angela's face, and Elena could feel his tension through their bond, hope and fear warring inside him. Finally, Angela spoke. Your assessment is sound. Remarkably so for someone who's been aware of our existence for less than a day. She turned to Sebastian. Where did you find her? She found me. Through circumstances neither of us fully understand. The child's gift. Angela looked at Lily, who still clung to her mother. That's what Katerina truly wants. The ability to breach another vampire's consciousness could shift the balance of power completely. Lily is not a weapon to be used. Elena's voice hardened. I won't allow it. You won't allow. The male vampire laughed, the sound cold. You're mortal. You allow nothing. You exist at our sufferance. Dimitri. Angela raised a hand, silencing him. Miss Thorne has proven herself valuable. Her strategic mind is uncommon, and Lord Corvinus has bound himself to her protection. She studied Sebastian. Which means attacking her would mean war with House Corvinus. Small as it is now, your house remembers how to fight. The last time someone tested that, 3 houses fell before you were satisfied. I remember. Sebastian's voice was cold. I also remember who stood beside me then. House Draculast honored its alliances. As we do now. Angela moved to the window, looking out at the pre-dawn darkness. House Draculast will acknowledge House Corvinus's renewed standing. We'll provide military support if Katerina attempts another incursion. And in exchange, she turned back to Elena, you'll provide strategic analysis, not just of Valenti, but of any house whose territorial ambitions threaten our interests. I'll help you defend your territories, Elena countered. I won't help you conquer others. Principles. Dimitri sneered. How mortal. But Angela smiled, sharp and approving. Principles we can work with. Agreed, Miss Thorne. Defensive strategies only. She extended a hand, pale and cold as death. Do we have an understanding? Elena looked at Sebastian, found reassurance in his slight nod. She took Angela's hand, fighting not to flinch at the unnatural cold. We have an understanding. Excellent. Angela released her hand. We'll send word to the other houses, those who would see Valenti's expansion checked. You've made interesting allies tonight, Miss Thorne. Let's hope you survive long enough to appreciate them." The delegation left as silently as they'd arrived, winter made incarnate. Sebastian sagged against the desk once they were gone. "You just negotiated with one of the oldest vampires in Europe, and won." "I didn't win. I bought us time." But Elena allowed herself a small smile. "Though, I admit, it felt good to be valued for my mind, rather than feared for what I know." "I'm not afraid of you," Lily said suddenly. She looked up at Sebastian with those two old eyes. "I never will be." He knelt before her, meeting her gaze. "You should be, at least a little. I'm dangerous, little dreamer." "So is Mama." Lily's smile was bright, innocent. "But that's why we're safe with you." Chapter 8. Crimson Vows. 3 nights later, Elena found Sebastian in the Manor's observatory, a glass-domed room she hadn't known existed until Lily led her there. He stood at the telescope, tracking something. Across the starfield, his profile sharp against the constellation-studded darkness. "You taught her their names," Elena said, stepping into the circular room. "Cassiopeia, Orion, Perseus. She knows them all now, even awake." Knowledge is armor. Sebastian didn't turn from the telescope. The more she understands, the less power the unknown holds over her. "Is that why you've spent centuries collecting books? Armor against eternity?" "Perhaps." He finally looked at her, and in the starlight his eyes seemed less silver and more human. Tired, ancient, achingly alone. Or perhaps I just needed something to fill the hours between one meaningless century and the next. Elena moved closer, studying the maps that covered the observatory walls. Not of territories, but of stars, charting their movements across millennia. "You're afraid?" she said quietly, feeling it through their bond. "Not of Katerina or the other houses. Of what happens after. When Lily's safe, and I'm no longer useful. I'm afraid you'll leave." The admission came rough, as if torn from somewhere deep. "The oath binds me to protect you, but not you to stay. Once the danger passes, you'll want normal lives, sunshine and human company in a world that makes sense. And I'll be alone again." "Sebastian, do you know what it's like?" He turned fully to face her, control finally cracking. "To watch everyone you love choose death over another day with you? To realize that immortality isn't a gift but a sentence, and you're serving it in solitary?" Elena closed the distance between them, close enough to feel the cold emanating from his skin. "Then why offer the blood oath? Why bind yourself to protecting people who will eventually leave?" "Because she recognized me." His voice dropped to barely above a whisper. "Your daughter looked at me and saw not a monster, but someone familiar. Safe. For the first time in a century, someone saw me as I was, not as I am. How could I not protect that?" The bond between them hummed, and Elena felt his loneliness like a physical ache. Centuries of it, crushing and vast. She reached up, fingers brushing his cold cheek. "You're not the monster you think you are. You don't know what I've done, what I'm capable of. No, but I know what you chose to do when a frightened woman and child appeared at your door. I know you could have turned us away, could have let Katerina take us, but you didn't." Her hand remained on his face, feeling how still he held himself. "That matters. Elena." Her name on his lips was a prayer and a warning. The blood oath bonds us for protection, but there's another kind of bond, deeper, more permanent. "I know." Her heart hammered against her ribs. "You can share blood with those you're bound to, not to feed but to connect. I read it in your books. It's intimate, more than anything mortals experience." His hand covered hers, still pressed to his cheek. "I would feel everything you feel. You would taste death in my veins, carry the cold of it in your marrow. And there's no reversal except death. Yes, I read that part too. Elena swallowed hard. Would it help? Against Katerina? Against the others who'll come? Strategically? Yes. A blood-bonded mortal is considered an extension of the vampire's house. Attacking you would be the same as attacking me directly. His thumb traced her wrist, finding her pulse. But Elena, it would change you. You'd crave proximity to me, dream of me as your daughter does. The boundary between yourself and me would blur. It's already blurred. She said it without shame. I feel your pain, your fear. Sometimes I catch myself thinking in your voice, seeing through your eyes. The oath did that. This would be more. Sebastian's control was fracturing. She could see it. Want warring with something that looked like conscience. I don't want to trap you. Then don't think of it as a trap. Elena's free hand went to his chest, to where the wound from Katerina's iron blade had finally healed. Think of it as a choice I'm making with full knowledge. You need allies. I need to keep my daughter safe, and we're already bound together by blood and oath and something neither of us understands. Why not make it count? You should be afraid of me. I'm terrified. She laughed, the sound shaky. But not of you, of Katerina, of the other houses, of what they'll do if we're not strong enough. So make us stronger, Sebastian. Show me what you've been too afraid to offer. He moved then, fast enough that she gasped, hands framing her face, body close enough that the cold of him seeped through her dress. Last chance. Say no, and we'll find another way. No other way is sure. Elena tilted her head back, exposing her throat in a gesture she'd seen in his books. Submission and trust made flesh. I choose this. I choose you. For Lily, for myself, for whatever this thing between us is becoming. Stop asking and just... He kissed her. Not her throat, but her mouth, and the coldness of him was shocking and perfect and strange. His lips were soft despite their temperature, and when she opened to him, tasting, the kiss deepened into something desperate and inevitable. When they finally broke apart, his eyes had darkened to storm cloud gray. Your wrist? Give me your wrist. Elena extended her arm, watching as he brought it to his mouth. His teeth were sharp when they broke skin, sharper than they'd looked, and the pain was bright and brief before something else took over. Pleasure, dark and rolling as he drew blood from her vein. She felt herself in him, felt the warmth of her blood mixing with his cold, building a bridge between living and dead. Then his wrist was at her mouth, bleeding from where he'd torn it open with his own teeth. Drink, quickly. The blood was cold, metallic, wrong. Elena forced herself to swallow, and the world exploded into sensation. His memories crashing through her, centuries of loneliness and battle and loss. And beneath it all, Lily's bright presence, their shared dreams, the three of them bound now in ways that had no name. When she pulled away, gasping, Sebastian caught her as her knees buckled. I have you. I have you both now, and I won't let go. Chapter 9. The Battle of Corvinus Manor. They came at midnight, when the bond was still raw and new in Elena's veins. She felt Sebastian's alarm before she heard the crash of breaking glass, felt his rage before his shout echoed through the manor's halls. Lily, wake up! Elena grabbed her daughter, the girl already stirring from sleep with that preternatural awareness she'd gained. We have to move. Now. Sebastian appeared in the doorway, dressed for battle in black leather that looked centuries old, silver weapons strapped across his chest. The catacombs. There's a passage beneath the library. Angela's forces are 3 hours away. We just need to survive until then. How many? Elena was already moving, Lily's hand tight in hers. 20, maybe more. Through the bond, she felt his grim calculation. Katerina brought an army. She means to end this tonight. They ran through corridors Elena had memorized over the past 3 days, the manor seeming to shift and assist their flight, doors opening before them, passages illuminating with sourceless light. Sebastian had explained the house was alive in some way, bound to his bloodline by magic older than nations. The library was chaos. Windows shattered inward, and vampires poured through like a flood of darkness. Sebastian met the first three with violence so swift Elena's eyes couldn't track it. Bodies flying, blood spraying black in the candlelight. But more kept coming, and even with his speed, he couldn't hold them all. The passage. Sebastian's voice cut through the sounds of battle. Behind the Shakespeare folio, press the spine. Elena dragged Lily to the bookshelf, hands shaking as she searched for the right book. Behind her, Sebastian fought with the precision of centuries, each movement economical, deadly. But she could feel his pain through the bond as wounds accumulated. A blade across his ribs, claws raking his shoulder. "Mama, here." Lily reached up, small hand finding the folio. The bookshelf shuddered, then swung inward, revealing stone steps descending into darkness. Katerina's voice rang out. How touching. The mortal thinks she can hide. Elena turned to see the ancient vampire standing at the broken window, red eyes gleaming with predatory satisfaction. She was beautiful in the way of poisonous things, perfect and cold, and absolutely lethal. You can't win this, Sebastian. Katerina moved into the room with liquid grace, her forces parting before her. 20 of mine against you alone. Even with your little mortal's strategic mind, the mathematics are clear. I don't need to win. Sebastian positioned himself between Katerina and Elena, blood dripping from multiple wounds. I just need to last until my allies arrive. House Draculaced? Katerina laughed. We blocked their approach. They're fighting my southern forces even now. No rescue is coming. Through the bond, Elena felt Sebastian's despair. He'd counted on Angela's support, planned around it. Without reinforcements, they couldn't hold. But then she looked at the library around them, at the accumulated knowledge of centuries, and an idea sparked. Sebastian, the maps. Elena pointed to the territorial chart still spread across his desk. House Valenti's vulnerability. It's worse than we thought. Look. He glanced at the maps, confused, but Elena sent the thought through their bond. Trust me. Play along, of course. Sebastian's voice carried across the library. Miss Thorne discovered it yesterday. House Valenti's blood oaths are breaking. 3 of your minor houses have already begun feeding resistance information to House Karnstein. Katerina's composure cracked for a fraction of a second. You're lying. Am I? Elena stepped forward, still clutching Lily. You've been so focused on acquiring territory, you haven't noticed the cost. Blood oaths require regular renewal, reinforcement through feeding and ritual. But your expansions stretch those oaths thin. The minor houses you've subjugated are weak, starving on insufficient feeding grounds. And hungry vampires make poor slaves. It was half truth, half bluff. Elena had noted signs of strain in House Valenti's network, but she couldn't know if actual betrayal had begun. But Katerina's eyes narrowed, doubt-seeding. Karnstein approaches from the west, Sebastian added, seizing the lie. They're coming for your territory tonight, Katerina. While your forces are here, dying for pride, your empire is being carved up by rivals. You think I'll fall for such obvious... A vampire burst through the door, one of Katerina's. My lady, urgent word from the Eastern Territories. House Karnstein has been spotted crossing our borders, multiple incursion points. They're claiming 3 of our minor houses have sworn new oaths. Silence fell. Elena held her breath, watching Katerina's ancient face cycle through shock, rage, and cold calculation. You did this. Katerina's voice was deadly quiet. You sent them information. I sent them truth. Elena lifted her chin. Your empire is built on sand, Lady Katerina. I just showed Karnstein where to dig. For a heartbeat, Elena thought Katerina would kill them all anyway. Consequences be damned. But then the ancient vampire smiled, sharp and terrible. Clever girl, you've bought yourself time. But this isn't over. One day your protector will fail. Your daughter will be vulnerable, and I'll be there. She was gone in a blur of motion, her forces following like shadows fleeing dawn. Through the broken windows, Elena watched them disappear into the night, heading east toward the crisis she'd helped manufacture. Sebastian slumped against the desk, wounds bleeding freely. You bluffed. With our lives as stakes, I calculated. Elena moved to him, hands already reaching for bandages. Katerina's smart enough to recognize real danger. Her empire was vulnerable. I just made sure she knew it before she destroyed us. Mama. Lily's voice was small. He's hurt bad. I know, sweetheart. Elena pressed cloth to the worst wound, feeling Sebastian's pain like her own through their bond. But he's survived worse. Haven't you? Sebastian caught her hand, managed a weak smile. With you as my strategist, I'm starting to believe I might survive anything. Dawnlight was breaking over the horizon when Angela's forces finally arrived. They found 3 survivors in a blood-soaked library, building something new from the ashes of old wars. Chapter 10. Dawn of the Immortal. 6 months had passed since the battle at Corvinus Manor. Spring had come to the estate, bringing with it renewal Elena had once thought impossible. She stood in the observatory now, watching Sebastian teach Lily about the morning star, Venus, bright against the fading night. They'd learned to time their lessons carefully, always ending before true dawn drove Sebastian to the manor's interior. Mama, come look. Lily's enthusiasm was pure and unguarded. The nightmares had stopped completely. She still dreamed of Sebastian, but now the dreams were peaceful, shared moments of learning and safety. Elena joined them at the telescope, her hand finding Sebastian's automatically. The bond between them had matured into something both of them had stopped questioning. She felt his presence always, a cold brightness at the edge of her consciousness, and he felt her warmth, the human vitality that anchored him to something beyond mere survival. House Valenti had retreated after the territorial losses to Karnstein. Katerina still posed a threat, but a distant one. House Draculesh's alliance had held firm, and word of Elena's strategic value had spread through the vampire political network. 3 other houses had sent envoys, seeking her analysis, her insight. House Corvinus was no longer forgotten, but the real question remained unspoken between them, hanging in the air like morning mist. Elena had felt it building for weeks, Sebastian's carefully controlled hope, his fear of asking, his certainty that she would eventually choose to leave. Lily, Elena said gently, go check on the roses in the garden. The black ones you planted. Her daughter looked between them with knowing eyes, too knowing for a 5-year-old, but then, nothing about their lives was normal anymore. You're going to talk about the grown-up thing. The grown-up thing, yes. Elena managed a smile. We won't be long. Lily skipped away, humming one of the old songs Sebastian had taught her, and Elena found herself alone with a vampire who'd somehow become essential to her existence. You're leaving. Sebastian said it flatly, resigned. The threats have diminished, Lily's safe, and you've fulfilled your strategic obligations. I understand, do you? Elena turned to face him fully. Because I don't think you understand at all. He frowned, confusion rippling through the bond. Elena, I'm not leaving. I'm asking. She took both his hands, feeling their familiar cold. I'm asking you to turn me. To make me what you are, to give me the eternity you've suffered alone. Sebastian's hands tightened on hers, shock rolling through him. You can't, that's not Elena, you have Lily to think of. Becoming vampire means, I know what it means. I've spent 6 months reading every book in your library about transformation, about what I'd lose and gain. I know I'd have to feed, that sunlight would become my enemy, that I'd watch Lily grow old and die unless... She paused, gathering courage. Unless we wait, until she's grown and can choose for herself. If she wants immortality, we offer it. If she wants mortality, we let her have that gift. But either way, I'll be there. Both of us will be there, not as her guardians, but as her family. You'd give up humanity? His voice cracked. For me? For us. Elena pulled him closer. For what we're building here. You've spent centuries alone, Sebastian. You don't have to anymore. And she laughed shakily. I spent 30 years being told my mind was unnatural for a woman, that my education was wasted, that I should be grateful to serve men like Ashford. But here, with you, I'm valued, used for good instead of exploitation. I'm not giving that up. I'm not giving you up. Through the bond, she felt his control shatter. Hope and fear and desperate longing flooding through, until she couldn't tell which emotions were his and which were hers. It will hurt, he warned, even as his hands framed her face with trembling care. The transformation is agony. 3 days of dying while your body rebuilds itself into something new. I've survived childbirth and poverty and Lord Ashford's cruelty. I can survive this. You'll crave blood. The first years are hardest, learning control, fighting instinct. Then teach me. You've had 2 centuries of practice. Elena. Her name was a broken prayer. I don't deserve this. Don't deserve you. Good thing I'm not offering myself as a reward. She smiled, fierce and certain. I'm offering myself as a partner, an equal. Someone who'll stand beside you for as long as forever lasts. So stop telling me why I shouldn't, and start telling me you want this too. I've wanted it since you first walked through my door. The admission came raw and honest. Wanted you to stay, to choose me, to build something that matters. But I was afraid to ask. I know. I felt it. She pressed her forehead to his. Through the bond, through every careful conversation, through the way you look at Lily and me like you can't believe we're real. You've been alone too long, Sebastian. Let me end that. He kissed her then, deep and desperate, and when they broke apart, his eyes had darkened to that storm gray that meant his control was slipping. When? How do you want to do this? After Lily's asleep tonight. In the room where you first offered me sanctuary. Elena's voice was steady, despite the enormousness of what she was choosing. I want to die and be reborn in the same place I first chose to trust you. You're certain? Absolutely. She smiled, and through the bond sent him everything she felt. Love and determination, and the thrilling terror of choosing forever. Make me immortal, Sebastian. Make me yours, but more than that, make me your equal. Your partner in rebuilding House Corvinus into something that matters. Epilogue. 3 years later, Elena Corvinus stood in the manor's library, watching through the window as her daughter, still mortal, still given the choice, played in the garden under Anzela's careful supervision. The ancient vampire had become an unlikely godmother, teaching Lily about vampire politics and human history with equal care. Sebastian appeared behind her, arms wrapping around her waist, his cold now a comfort rather than a shock. The transformation had been everything he'd warned, agony and death and rebirth into something new. But she'd survived it, learned to feed with control and conscience, become the strategic heart of a house that was once again feared and respected. House Karnstein sent another request for consultation. Sebastian murmured against her neck. They want your analysis of House Bathory's expansion into former Valenti territory. Later. Elena turned in his arms, vampire swift now herself. Right now, I want to watch our daughter grow. We have centuries to plan strategies. We have only decades with her like this. Human, warm, alive. She still dreams of me, Sebastian said softly, even though she's awake when we talk now. The connection never broke. Some bonds transcend explanation. Elena kissed him, brief and sweet, like a child recognizing an alpha vampire in her dreams, like a governess choosing to become a monster's equal, like immortality that finally feels less like a curse and more like a gift. Through the window, Lily looked up and waved, her smile bright with the joy of a child who'd found her family in the most impossible place. And in the manor that had sheltered secrets and loneliness for 600 years, 3 souls, 2 immortal, 1 still choosing, built something that had never existed before. A home. A house. A future that stretched toward forever, built on dreams and blood and choices made with open eyes. The child had recognized the alpha vampire immediately. And in doing so, she'd saved them both,